Hey guys, I am here to talk to you about Darth Revan. He's finally coming to the game, and I'm here to show you his kit and talk about his abilities and everything. So, of course, he is going to be a Sith character. He has a leader ability, he's an attacker, dark side of course, and he's got a new faction tag, which is Sith Empire. The Sith Empire tag is going to be added to HK-47, Bastila Shan, Sith Assassin, Sith Marauder, and Sith Trooper as well. Now, Darth Revan is a ruthless Sith Lord that is extremely effective at taking down the enemy leader, which as we go through his abilities, you will definitely understand the reason for that. So we'll just go ahead and jump into his first basic, which is Lacerate. The final text: deals special damage to target enemy, inflict buff immunity on target enemy and enemy leader for 2 turns. If the target is the leader, reduce Darth Revan's cooldowns by 1. This is really important because he's going to be using his basic ability a lot, as you'll see by one of his uniques later, and I'll talk about that when we get to it. His first special is Force Storm. This has a 3-turn cooldown. Final text: deal special damage to all enemies and shock them for 2 turns. All Sith Empire allies gain 5 stacks of ferocity for 2 turns. This attack can't be evaded. Ferocity, minus 15% defense and tenacity per stack, plus 8% offense and potency per stack, and it can't be copied. So this is the debuff that makes this team go, and that is the really cool thing about this kid. Is kind of the exact opposite of Jedi Knight Revan. His team works entirely around buffs, but the Darth Revan team works entirely around debuffs, which is kind of interesting because you can't really prevent a team from getting debuffs. That's part of what's going to make this team so powerful and so good. So this ferocity ability, he gives the 5 stacks to everyone. So whenever he does this ability, that'll obviously be 40% offense, which is almost like having offense up, and 40% potency, but they lose the tenacity and defense. So they're going to get a little bit easier to kill and much easier to apply debuffs, which really isn't that big of a deal. His second special is Insanity. This has a 4-turn cooldown. Final text: deal special damage to target enemy and inflict fear on them and enemy leader for 1 turn. If the target is the leader, or if the leader is defeated, inflict fear on all enemies for 1 turn. This fear can't be copied, dispelled, or resisted, and this attack can't be evaded. Fear: miss the next turn, can't use abilities, and can't evade. Increase cooldowns by 1, and fear expires on taking damage from an attack. So this is something that the Bastila Shan rework has built into her kit, is the fear ability. You may have seen this kind of before in one of the assault battles, in which whenever you kill the leader, it puts fear on the other characters, and they lose speed and some things like that. So this mechanic obviously works a little bit different, but it's kind of the same idea, in which affecting the leader kind of affects the rest of the team, which is actually really cool. And fear is kind of an interesting debuff because you miss your next turn and can't use abilities. So it's like an ability block, or it's more like a stun, and it can be evaded. But if you damage them after that point, they will then have that debuff removed, get to take their turn, but you increase the cooldowns by 1. So this is going to make it very difficult for a character like Jolie, for example, to counter and still get his abilities back, because it's pretty easy for him to refresh his cooldowns with his basic, for example. And obviously this team is kind of designed to get rid of the Jedi Knight Revan meta, as you probably know. Something else I'd like to point out is special damage. That is really common with Darth Revan. That is kind of primarily what he does. All 3 of his abilities are special damage. And, if you listen to our podcast, which of course you can catch every week here on our YouTube channel or your favorite podcatcher, but something I've talked about a lot is special damage. That typically makes secondary percent offense much more important. It's a lot more usable. Kind of balances out between percentage and just your flat offense, and because special damage is always a little bit higher than physical offense, but it has lower crit chance. So this is a character you're definitely going to be wanting to focus, percent offense and adding more offense. In fact, you're going to be wanting to go with an offense set on Darth Revan and HK-47. This whole team's kind of going to be built around an offense set rather than a crit damage set, which is what most people are used to using for damage output. All right, so we'll move on to his leader ability, which is Lord of the Sith. Final text. This does have Zeta ability. Sith Empire allies are immune to turn meter reduction while they are debuffed and gain 10% critical chance and 15 speed for each of their own debuff. At the start of each Sith Empire ally's turn, they gain 5 stacks of ferocity for 2 turns. At the start of the battle, if all allies are Sith Empire, they have plus 50% critical damage. At the end of each turn, if an enemy falls below 50% health during that turn, inflict death mark on the enemy leader for 1 turn. This death mark can't be copied, dispelled, evaded, or resisted. This is what I was talking about. This is how he takes out the leader. Death mark is a very strong ability, obviously. Someone inflicted with death mark, if you don't know, each time you damage them, it takes 50% of their health, or does damage equal to 50% of their health. So this is going to be very powerful for taking out characters, and it's kind of going to punish them for having a lot of health, which is something that's really interesting. Something else that I'd like to point out is if you have an entire team of Sith Empire characters having the plus 50% crit damage, you definitely want to go offense, zero doubt about it. Having that additional critical damage, that makes the offense set far more valuable. This wasn't something that I covered previously. There'll be a link up in the notes, or a link that you can click on to go to a video that I've done previously talking about crit damage versus offense set bonuses and the secondaries and such. Check that out. But this is something that I should have covered in that video and didn't, but characters that get additional critical damage, they actually tend to be better off with offense rather than crit damage sets, but you're still better off with the crit damage triangle. So that's kind of how you're going to want to mod Darth Revan and HK-47. So the other thing I'd like to point out is they gain the 10% critical chance and 15 speed for each of their own debuffs. So at the start of their turn, they gain the 5 stacks of ferocity. So right there, that is 75 speed and 50% crit chance. So they're going to be critting a ton, which is going to be pretty interesting and kind of awesome. But the other thing is the 75 speed. That's a lot of speed. But if you reference back to his first special, you'll notice that he gives Sith Empire allies 5 stacks of ferocity also. So when he goes, at that point, whenever he uses that special ability, he'll have 10 stacks of ferocity, and as we talked about earlier, that will be 80% offense, 80% tenacity. Like, that's a lot of offense and offense and potency that's kind of stacking up, making it easier to land the debuffs and all that sort of stuff with this team. Really cool mechanics there and the way it works together. Very excited to actually use this team. Unfortunately, the only footage we have are the GIFs from the forum post, but of course we'll get footage out there as quick as we can. Be paying attention. We'll probably try to do a live stream of unlocking the character or something along those lines, so make sure you hit the subscribe button if you find this video useful, and check back. Onto his first unique ability, Conqueror. This also has a Zeta ability. Darth Revan has plus 100% defense penetration. At the start of each Sith Empire ally's turn, dispel all foresight on all enemies, which can't be evaded. When a Sith Empire ally is inflicted with ability block or stun, they dispel that debuff and gain ferocity for 2 turns. Enemies can't assist or gain bonus moves if their attack is targeting Darth Revan. This is super cool. So, say Jedi Knight Revan, for example, whenever he does mark and he calls everyone in, he's not going to be able to just mark Darth Revan right off the bat and have everyone mass assist him. He's going to be very difficult to kill for that reason. Another one is like Han and Chewie. They're not going to be able to, come in and assist whenever attacking Darth Revan. I don't know exactly what part of this is the Zeta. I suspect that's probably the part, because that is ridiculously powerful. The other thing I'd like to mention about this ability is whenever a Sith Empire ally is inflicted with the ability block or stun, they dispel it and gain ferocity. So actually trying to ability block or stun these characters actually makes them stronger. It allows them to do more offense. It, as discussed, does make them a little bit easier to kill because of the minus 15% defense, but that's not a huge amount. But you can't stun them, you can't ability block them, so turn meter reduction, and even maybe like Darth Nihilus, something that has a cooldown increase, that might be the way that you kind of want to attack these characters whenever, Darth Revan's there. His second unique is called Villain. Final text with the Zeta. When Darth Revan uses an ability during their turn, if the selected target is already inflicted with Deathmark, Fear, or Corrupted Battle Meditation, Darth Revan immediately uses Lacerate. When Fear expires on an enemy, they also dispel all buffs on themselves. When Darth Revan's health falls below 50%, it is equalized with the other healthiest ally. The most interesting thing here is Darth Revan immediately uses Lacerate. So this is a double tap type ability, very, very similar to what you see with Raid Han, Han Solo. He, every time he uses that basic ability, double taps. Revan kind of has a similar thing. So if the selected target, very important, selected target has Deathmark, Fear, Corrupted Battle Meditation on them, and he uses a special, he will do that special, and then he will turn around, come back, and use his basic. So, when using specials, especially if one of those 3 debuffs on the leader, you're going to want to target that leader whenever you do one of his specials, due to coming back and doing the buff immunity, and let's see, back to his basic ability, the buff immunity. Or if you're targeting the leader, it will reduce his cooldowns by 1. So using targeting with, say, his special, and then using his basic ability will then reduce that cooldown down to 2. So he could be using his special ability every other turn, if you're selectively targeting like that. So very interesting. He doesn't have any avoiding taunt mechanics, but that's kind of where the buff immunity comes in. That's going to be kind of important. So buff immunity on General Kenobi, and then you can kind of go around and target whoever you like. Very, very awesome kit. It doesn't require a PhD to read like, Jedi Knight Revan did. So very, very interesting. I'm very excited to get my hands on this character and actually use him and see what he's like. Modding strategy, I am going offense set, crit damage, triangle with speed arrow, and then as far as health protection, that's I'm not sure yet. We'll have to see exactly how everything works with him. Haven't dug into all the characters to kind of start synergizing those teams yet. But I know you're going to want to use HK with him since he has that AoE tenacity down. I mean, this team is just absolutely going to counter what the Jedi team does. This is a fantastic counter, and so if you're tired of the Jedi Knight Revan meta, I mean, time's ticking. It's about over. So good luck to all of you getting your Darth Revan. Again, hit the subscribe button. Let us know what you thought of the video. And of course, catch the podcast this week, episode 141. We will entirely be talking about Darth Revan and synergies and modding and the teams and all that sort of stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you come over and check that out. And we will catch you guys then. Later.